Hello everyone, this is Mike Roble with another entry in our Finance Central video series. Today we're talking all things state aid. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have a better idea of how charter schools in Michigan are funded at the state level, the proportions and amounts of major components, and how to check on the status of your school's state revenue. All schools collect revenue from different sources, but by far the most significant and impactful source are state funds in the form of the foundation allowance and other smaller categoricals, really which are simply smaller pots of money for a variety of other programs and services the schools qualify for. Now obviously this topic can get fairly complex quickly, so I encourage members of our audience wanting more to visit the State Aid and School Finance section of the Michigan Department of Education's website for a deeper understanding of what we're going to be talking about here. Let's start with the biggest piece. Schools receive state aid based primarily on the number of pupils in attendance. Bigger schools with more kids receive more money is the simplest way to say it. Each student qualifies for the foundation allowance, which for fiscal year 25 stands at $9,608 for each pupil enrolled. The foundation allowance goes up or down each year, usually up, based on estimated tax revenue collected by the government. A history of the foundation allowance is provided at the end of this video. To get a sense of how important the foundation allowance is to the overall funding picture from the state, let's look at totals from the fiscal year 25 budget. From the conference report summary of the Education Omnibus budget, which is a detailed but very useful summary of the actual bill, we see a total state aid fund appropriation of $18.6 billion, which includes nearly $1 billion for community colleges and other higher education, which leaves $17.6 billion for school aid. Of that, we see a bit more than $10.5 billion is appropriated to the foundation, about 60%, which is a pretty significant amount of the total. Other major items the state helps schools with includes paying for unfunded pension programs for teachers in the traditional schools, special education services, at-risk pupils, which is sometimes called 31A money, and much more. I encourage interested listeners to review these budget docs yearly to maintain their understanding of how the legislature allocates funding. Now that we've talked a little bit about what schools get paid for, let's look at the how and when it happens. As covered in previous installments, the state of Michigan's fiscal year starts on October 1st. So they can't pay schools for the current fiscal year until after that date. The current structure has them dispersing payments in 11 roughly equal installments on or around the 20th of every month. So that means the first payment of every year occurs on October 20th, and they continue through August. The July and August payments, which represent the 10th and 11th final payment, accrue to the state's prior fiscal year that closed on June 30th. Which allows them to recognize all state revenue in the corresponding fiscal years despite the difference in start times. Now let's transition to the way folks can check the status of their state funding and how to navigate the reports you'll see. Each month, a few days before payments actually go out, the state updates status reports for every ISD, traditional, and charter school in the state. Each report is substantially similar in format, even though the amounts vary by millions of dollars. The smallest charter school in the state is still paid through the same mechanisms that Detroit and other major city public school systems enjoy. A quick look at any of these reports should connect a lot of dots in what we've been talking about. And again, you can always see detailed calculation and budget information for yourself at any time using some of the resources we've mentioned. Let's look at a status report together. You'll see in the top right the most recent and accurate student count the department is using because, as we've seen, enrollment is the biggest driver of revenue, so a district tied to enrollment is a useful data point when comparing funding in districts. You'll also see current and total amounts for the categories the schools qualify for, with major items we've already covered standing out. This is also where you'll see local tax revenue that traditional schools collect, and see how that affects the amount of foundation they receive from the state. Take it a moment to look at other schools in the reports you download by ISD. Try to see how traditional districts are funded similarly, but also in importantly different ways from charter schools. Thanks for your time, and please always feel comfortable reaching out with questions of your own.